Hello dearies, it's that time again, time to address another piece of the huge topic of osteoporosis. We're still not finished with it yet, even though we began this unit way back in video 996. This is video 226, so it's the 31st video on osteoporosis. In my book, both editions, all of chapter 29 is osteoporosis, just in case you're using it to follow along. So here's where we are. In the first 15 videos in the osteoporosis unit, I taught you everything you need to know about osteoporosis as a disease process. I did so stepwise so that you really understand how critical it is to know what's happening to your bones and why. Then, in videos 211 to 225, I addressed all the options for preventing and treating osteoporosis. You learned that the only options that can actually treat osteoporosis are estrogen, various hormonal medications, and the non-hormonal medications, most of which are SERMs. So, while there are many options for arresting or replacing bone loss, they are all prescription medications. Nothing in any other category of options can treat osteoporosis. Diet, lifestyle, vitamins, and minerals are only capable of preventing bone loss when your bone quantity is still normal. Here's the T-score scale I've shown you about a dozen times now. It reflects this. Just focus on the part in red. It's osteoporosis land. And look at the purple items that fall under the red osteoporosis part of the scale. They include only the hormonal and non-hormonal medication options. So this means that if you take estrogen, some other hormonal medication, or any of the non-hormonal medications, you will easily arrest the loss of bone and even replace lost bone. But the question then becomes, what happens when you stop taking treatment to prevent or replace bone loss? And that is our topic for today. The reason it's so important for you to watch this video is because so much of what you would expect or hope to be the case in the realm of treating bone loss is not the way it plays out in reality. I would hate for you to treat your osteoporosis only to end up with a recurrence. So let's address this systematically. We'll start with estrogen. The very first thing you learned in these osteoporosis videos is that estrogen loss causes bone loss. This is the graph I showed you in video 222. The orange line is estrogen. The gray line is bone. Simply put, when you lose your estrogen, you start losing bone. So, if you take estrogen replacement, you can prevent bone loss so that it never occurs in the first place. In that instance, the graph would look like this. Here you see your own body's estrogen in orange again. And of course, at post-menopause, at about age 50, it plummets, as depicted in the previous graph. But at age 50, you see the green line indicating estrogen replacement. And because of that estrogen replacement, you see the gray line representing your bone density stay normal rather than decreasing like it did without estrogen replacement. Now to address the topic of this video. What happens if you stop estrogen replacement? Any guesses? Come on, as much as you don't want to admit it, you know the answer. If you stop taking estrogen, you will start losing bone. It makes sense, doesn't it? So here's what the graph would look like in that instance. Now you see that you maintain your bone density for as long as you take estrogen replacement. But when you stop the estrogen, you start losing bone. And you catch up to the same low bone density that you would have had if you had never taken estrogen in the first place. So all you have done is defer your bone loss. In video 222, I presented some other hormonal medication options besides estrogen. They included testosterone, progesterone, tibolone, calcitonin, and teriparatide. Of those, you discovered that testosterone and tibolone are for early intervention of bone loss. Calcitonin and teriparatide are for treatment of severe bone loss. Progesterone is of no use at all, so we'll exclude it from the discussion altogether. So let's see what happens if you stop taking any of these hormonal medication options. Here's that graph again showing you what happens if you stop any of the other hormonal medications for treating osteoporosis besides estrogen. It's the same thing. Here, the green line represents testosterone, tibolone, calcitonin, or teriparatide. But the result of stopping any of them is that you lose bone, and you lose it rapidly, just like you do when you lose your own estrogen. So your bones operate by the principle of here today, gone tomorrow, or maybe you prefer be here now. The bottom line is that all these hormonal medication options only prevent or replace bone loss while you're taking them. They do not provide any lingering benefit once you stop. Okay, now, after you learned about these hormonal medication options in video 222, you learned about the non-hormonal medication options in video 224. They are mostly SERMs, and, if you don't understand something, I guarantee you it's because you have not watched my videos in order. There's just no way I can tell you everything in a single video. So the only way I can give you this education is to deliver it stepwise, and that means you have to watch the videos in order. So the SERMs I covered in videos 34, 35, and 224. Okay, so here are the non-hormonal medication options. They include all the bisphosphonates, raloxifene, tamoxifen, vasodoxifene, and denosumab. They are all SERMs except for the last one. Now, all of these are capable of preventing or replacing bone loss. So let's look at the original graph that depicts what happens to your bone density when you lose your estrogen. Once again, the orange line is estrogen. The gray line is bone. Since we're addressing treatment, let's put these on that graph and demonstrate a degree of bone loss that has occurred already. Let's say you start taking a SERM when you get your bone density scan at age 65, and that's when you discover that you already have osteoporosis. Here's what would happen to that graph in that instance. The orange line represents your estrogen, and the gray line represents your bone. You see that you started losing bone when you lost your estrogen. But you see the green line? It represents a non-hormonal medication. And when you started taking it, your bone density increased. And it kept increasing as long as you kept taking the medication. So now, let's see what happens when you discontinue the non-hormonal medication. Any guesses? Now you see the same orange line representing your own estrogen, the same gray line representing your bone, and the same green line for just a short time representing a non-hormonal medication. When you start taking the non-hormonal medication, your bone density steadily increases. But when you stop it, you lose bone rapidly and continue losing it just as you would if you'd never taken the medication in the first place. So once again, your bones abide by the principle of here today, gone tomorrow, or be here now. Your bones will only maintain their density or increase in density while you are taking the non-hormonal medication. Some of these hormonal or non-hormonal medications impose a limit on how long you could take them. So this is why some women actually treat their osteoporosis with more than one of these agents. They may use one option for a few years and then use another one after that. That's one of the reasons it's good to have so many different products from which to choose. The key is to understand fully that no matter how you choose to prevent or replace bone loss, you will only do so while you are taking the medication. Your bones have no memory. They only respond to what is going on at the moment. If you stop any medication or treatment for osteoporosis, you will start losing bone when you stop it. Now, I know that's not the way you want it, but that's the way it is. And I always hate it when I end on a bad note, but that's the way it is today. If you need me to address anything with you about osteoporosis personally or anything else personally, schedule a consultation with me at menopausetailor.me. Until next week, please follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you haven't already subscribed, do so now. Bye.